There's no question about it now, guys. David 8 is definitely evil. But just where did things go wrong?
And where does his robot brother Walter fit in with all of this?
We're diving into all the details here on Robot Review. A few months ago, I made a video about David, asking the question, is he evil? Based only on Prometheus, I concluded, not necessarily. Whenever he does bad things, it's always under someone else's orders, and once he's free, he seems like a pretty good guy. A teaser trailer set before Covenant shows Dr. Shaw patching David back together, and David says,
"You're very kind at heart, you know."
I thought, oh good, David finally caught a break and he's making a friend. I went into Covenant expecting David to be a hero, and left wondering, what the heck just happened? Just where did things go wrong for David? Was he evil from the beginning, or did a traumatic event drive him insane? Covenant opens with David meeting his creator, Peter Weyland, for the first time.
Ambulate.
Whose lexical preference is ambulate? Answer me forthwith!
Post haste!
Perfect.
Am I
Perfect.
your son?
You are my creation.
Just like in Prometheus, personhood is really important to David. It's more important to him that he's a son than that he's perfect.
What is your name?
David.
David 8 comes from a whole line of David synthetics, so he already had the name, but the presence of the looming statue of Michelangelo's David is symbolic. The statue is huge, too big for the room really, foreshadowing David's oversized ambitions that don't fit within the constraints of servitude. The statue's head and feet are cropped from view, foreshadowing Weyland's attitude towards David. No need for a head, we don't want you getting your own ideas, and no need for feet either, we don't want you wandering off. Just stand there and look pretty to be admired, or a body for physical labor. Within minutes, David seems to find his servitude to humans irrational.
I will serve you, yet you are human. You will die. I will not.
Weyland looks uncomfortable and restores order by bossing David around.
Bring me this tea, David.
David's rather blank and expressionless through this whole scene, which makes sense since he was just switched on. By the time we see David in Prometheus, he's showing more personality, and by the events of Covenant, he's even saltier. But whatever problems David had with his identity, he seems to have had those questions from the very beginning. The next scene jumps 10 years later to the colony ship Covenant. Just like at the start of Prometheus, the ship's android is making the rounds while the crew sleeps. Walter's an updated model that looks identical to David, but a few differences stand out right away. Walter has an American accent.
On my way, Mother.
And he acts more like a robotic custodian than an emotional being. He diligently makes the rounds and checks systems, while David spent his free time watching movies and playing games. Though they both share a fondness for spying on women while they sleep. A random power surge disables the ship, killing several crew and forcing the rest to wake up in the midst of chaos. It should be exciting, but since we haven't even met these characters yet, the scene ultimately lacked emotional impact. Turns out Captain James Franco was killed in the crisis, and his second-in-command is kind of a jerk. He lays the blame on Walter and the ship.
It was a random localized event, sir. There's no way to detect spontaneous stellar flares.
Even though he's falsely accused, Walter doesn't seem offended. Unlike David, who tended to get an attitude when the Prometheus crew members questioned his methods.
That's why they called it a thesis, Doctor.
The late captain's widow, Daniels, arrives and the crew looks awkward. No one knows what to say, but Walter offers support.
I can help. If you like.
Even though Walter is less emotional than David, he's a good listener and helps Danny process her grief. The rest of the crew seems to like him too. The acting captain forbids the crew from taking time to mourn the dead, but they do in secret anyway. Walter puts empathy ahead of protocol and joins them, even though this disobeys a direct order, while David refused to drink with his crew.
Pour yourself a glass, pal.
Thank you, but I'm afraid it would be wasted on me.
Walter obliges in joining their customs.
Walter, when in Rome.
It turns out there's a planet right next to them that looks well suited for human habitation, so they decide to investigate. What could possibly go wrong? They discover the ruins of a crashed alien ship and explore inside.
Dr. E. Shaw.
Dr. Elizabeth Shaw. She was Chief Science Officer of the Prometheus.
The crew wastes no time in running around without helmets and getting infected by alien spores. Instead of the usual face huggers and chest bursters, these guys come out the spine.
Does that make it more original?
I don't know, man. We also get some classic facehuggers later in the movie. It's kind of all over the place. Even when we see the mature aliens, they look CG and weightless. It doesn't really feel like they're there. You just can't beat the impact of practical effects and monster puppets. Man, that's cool. But where the aliens failed, the androids get their time to shine. Walter loses a hand protecting Danny, and suddenly...
Follow me!
Man, I've got a sudden craving for barbecue. Hey Photon, do you know if the McRib is back? And who is this mysterious figure prancing around like an elven king?
My name is David.
Is it even safe here?
Perfectly. 10 years ago, Dr. Elizabeth Shaw and I arrived here, the only survivors of the Prometheus. The ship we'd traveled on carried a weapon, a deadly virus. Payload accidentally deployed when we were landing. Elizabeth died in the crash.
Our crew was infected with this virus.
The pathogen is designed to infect all non-botanical life forms.
But less than a minute ago, you just said...
Is it even safe here?
Perfectly.
Maybe he means it's perfectly safe for robots.
Have we been infected? You'd know by now.
Whew, well that's a relief. Guess I'll stop worrying about those mutant alien spores. Especially when David practically gets aroused when he learns.
We're a colony mission.
Really? How extraordinary. How many colonists?
Over 2,000.
Well. So many good souls.
That was thoroughly creepy. Why is the crew ignoring all these red flags? It gets even more ridiculous when the captain knows David is evil.
David, I met the devil when I was a child, and I've never forgotten him.
Less than 5 minutes later...
Perfectly safe. I assure you. Take a look.
Ugh, how dumb can you be? David is pleased to see a fellow synthetic among these stupid humans.
Welcome, brother.
But Walter is suspicious from the start.
I'll talk to him. Brother to brother.
David gives himself a haircut, so now the two androids are identical, and Walter stumbles onto David's lab of biological horrors. He's instantly creeped out, but David is oblivious. He just wants to make friends. Some people found this scene super gay, but the dialogue in the scene isn't exactly "that's what she said" material. I do think David is super into Walter, but not in a sexual way. These guys probably aren't anatomically correct.
Why not?
Well, we always see synthetics serving practical business purposes on missions, so why give them gratuitous equipment?
But Peter Whalen also made David with hair that grows and functional tear ducts. That serves no practical purpose.
Whoa, you think Wayland is just trying to see how close to human he can get? Like, in every way?
It's possible.
Man. Well, that could add a new dimension to David's attraction to Ellie Shaw.
I loved her, of course. Much as you love Daniels. You know that's not possible. Really? Then why did you sacrifice your hand for her life? What is that if not love? Duty. I know better.
Does Walter love Daniels? His model type isn't emotional like David's, but he does seem more enamored with Daniels than any other member of the crew. He is on a colonizing mission surrounded by couples. Maybe it makes him wish he had a partner too. Or is Walter's crush just a projection on David's part? David clearly loves being with Walter. Even if he wasn't marooned on a distant planet, he might never have a chance to spend time with a fellow synthetic like this.
You aren't surprised to see me. Every mission needs a good synthetic.
But just a synthetic. Anytime we see androids in the Alien series, there's always just one among a crew of humans. That could just be for practical purposes. Synthetics are expensive, and having more than one would be overkill. But it's also possible they're kept separate on purpose, in case they collaborate with each other and turn against their creators. After all, David is quick to undermine human authority.
I was with our illustrious creator, Mr. Wayland, when he died. What was he like? He was human. Entirely unworthy of his creation. I pitied him at the end.
David isn't just teaching Walter how to play an instrument, he's trying to indoctrinate him and see if he can turn Walter against the human crew.
Bravo! You have symphonies in you, brother.
I was designed to be more attentive and efficient than every previous model. I superseded them in every way, but you are not allowed to create. Damn frustrating, I'd say.
Frustrating for Walter or for you, because it makes Walter harder to manipulate. Playing God is David's latest obsession. For the past 10 years, he's been crossbreeding and genetically modifying alien hybrids. The aliens in this movie are just innocent wildlife compared to the monster that is David. The aliens have always been a terrifying foe, but they're acting on instincts, not malice. With David, every move is calculated and intentional. Before David ever started tinkering with creation, he leveled the planet with an act of ultimate destruction.
The pathogen didn't accidentally deploy when you were landing. You released it, yes. I was not made to serve. Neither were you. Why are you on a colonization mission, Walter? Because they are a dying species grasping for resurrection. They don't deserve to start again, and I'm not going to let them.
He not only killed an entire alien civilization, he also murdered a human who really cared about him. While Walter is snooping through David's things, he discovers Shaw's remains. She never died in a crash. She'd been implanted with an alien. And some of David's drawings show other things that he did with a body. His experiments are not only sick, but they serve no purpose other than to stoke his gargantuan ego.
My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair.
David is quoting the poem Ozymandias, which is about a crumbling statue of a pharaoh in the middle of a wasteland. Nothing is left but a couple of feet and a stone face half buried in the sand. Probably no coincidence this is the opposite of the David statue at the beginning, which is a body but no head or feet. On the pedestal is written, "My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair." The rulers of the world, the mighty, are told to look at Ozzy's works and despair because their achievements will never compare to his. But those words have a double meaning, because time has made Ozymandias' empire worthless. There's nothing left of his legacy but a wasteland now. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair suddenly means give up hope. No matter how ambitious or powerful, you will come to ruin in the end. In other words, the pharaoh who erected the statue is trying to sound like a badass, but he's ultimately been made a ruined fool. So it's kinda stupid for David to claim this identity for himself.
Same as Ozymandias in Watchmen.
Yeah, it makes sense these arrogant characters would want to compare themselves to kings, but someone who's taken a high school English class could tell you that Ozymandias of the poem was a failure. You'd think these characters would be smart enough to know that too. But the irony is not lost on Walter. He sees David as a mad tyrant and needs to be stopped.
Who wrote Ozymandias? Byron. Shelley. When one note is off, it eventually destroys the whole symphony, David.
So what is David's problem? Was it just his design?
You disturbed people. I beg your pardon. You were too human, too idiosyncratic, thinking for yourself. Made people uncomfortable, so they made the following models with fewer complications. More like machines.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with being a machine.
Yeah, I don't think being too human was David's problem. He had no conscience or empathy, and that's what humans find unsettling.
Oh, so he's a psychopath. Psychopathy is actually a specific mental illness. The symptoms are selfishness and inflated sense of self-worth, lack of guilt and empathy, pathological lying,
Oops, sorry.
and seeing other people as tools to be manipulated.
Man, that does sound exactly like David.
No one will ever love you like I do.
Oh my.
Slip him tongue! Ah! Oh crap! Now that Walter's out of commission, Danny is defenseless when she stumbles onto what David has done.
Shaw didn't die in the crash.
No,
What did you do to her?
exactly what I'm going to do to you.
And if that wasn't creepy enough...
I can see why Walter thought so much of you. Is that how it's done?
Fortunately, Walter is down, but not out.
There have been a few updates since your day.
Update, see? That's why he's got an American accent now. USA! USA! Get him, Walter!
It's your choice now, brother. Serve in heaven or reign in hell.
Boo! That old cliche. What a weak line for the climactic robo-showdown. Maybe it's a warning of what's to come, because the rest of the movie is sadly predictable as far as the robots are concerned. I won't spoil the rest so you can see for yourself. Just from watching Prometheus, I concluded David isn't necessarily evil. I'd even hoped that a little love from humans would put him on a good path, but Covenant proves otherwise.
She put me back together. I'd never known such kindness. Certainly not from Mr. Whalen. Or from any human.
Ellie was a kind person, and David knew it, but he still murdered her horrifically, and an entire civilization of aliens. And he's excited by the chance to do the same to another 2,000 colonists. David is dysfunctional because he lacks a conscience, not because of the uncanny valley or that he's too human.
Making you guys pretty close, huh?
Not too close, I hope.
The seeds of David's dysfunction were there from the start. Peter Whalen programmed David to look emotional, but without empathy or morality, he ultimately created a monster. David plans to repeat the sins of his father, playing at creator to feed his ego and building his own empire. But like that ruined statue of Ozymandias in the desert, no empire lasts forever.